And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winnehaven, and even Wachoo. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers enter the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California, Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders.
Third down, 18, dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up in the head, intercepted, at the 40, Derek Brooks 30, Brooks to the 25, 20, Derek Brooks all the way, there it is, the dagger's in, we're gonna win the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks tomorrow. Holy hell.
Everyone always says, why the Bucks, man? Why do you choose the Bucks? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time, throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw, throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scotty Miller in the open, makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Super Bowl 55 will be underway at Raymond James Stadium. Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. Bucs are the Super Bowl champs. They can't stop the clock. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
On 3rd and 3, they protect Brady. Scans the field and lets it fly. It's Evans. It's a touchdown.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
20-10, your final score from New Orleans as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers emerge victorious and improve their record to 2-0. Never a doubt. Huh? Bucs win. Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast, live on YouTube today for our Week 2 post-game. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. That was certainly a football game, my friend.
That was a brawl. And we'll talk about the brawl that kind of may change this game because there were some things that had happened prior to where this team looked dead in the water. But obviously, we'll get into all of it. But, I mean, nonetheless, good to get a monkey off the back, finally get a win, a regular season win in New Orleans. I guess the key is to wear white jerseys, Peter Pants, because that seems to be the only combo they could beat them in. So
it's been the winning combination.
In Tampa, week 13 or whatever that is, that's what you should wear because you can't beat them in nothing else. So 2-0 in that combination, that'll work. Yeah, 2-0 now, and it's nice to get a stranglehold on the division for now. The Panthers lost as well, so the Panthers are 0-2. The Falcons are playing the Rams right now, so I would assume the Rams will win that game. So Falcons probably dropped to 0-2. So it was a good win. Played. I don't know if they play. I guess you could say they played complimentary football, but they weren't as sharp as they were last week for sure. And like I said, we'll get into all that. But nonetheless, a win is a win, and it's going to show up in the stat column as 2-0.
Yeah, after the first half of play, I mean, to be honest with you, it felt like the same situation we usually see. The offense, Tom Brady, even the run game, there weren't a lot of lanes. The Buccaneers were without a couple of pass catchers, and they ended the game without even more pass catchers. We'll get into that as well. But it felt like a slog for both of these teams. And obviously that's where the defense comes into play, and we're going to open up the show and talk about the defensive side of the ball. Because holy turnover, man. I mean, the turning point of the game was that fight we had mentioned. Marshawn Lattimore getting chippy with Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette getting involved, and then Mike Evans came and got involved, flattened number 23, and both of those guys are ejected. So after that point, the tension had been building. There's usually a boiling point, especially when they play in New Orleans. The crowd was loud. They were a factor for 4 quarters. But following Mike Evans and his ejection, I thought that was the tipping point in favor of New Orleans, because let's be honest, that's how it goes 90% of the time when these two teams play. And luckily, the Buccaneers defense has been stout, only allowing 13 points over the first 2 weeks of football. One of the biggest takeaways I have with this defense, especially after today's game, these guys are for real.
Yeah, it's impressive, especially what they were able to do against a good Saints offense, I think. And Sean in the chat said he's so glad that you lost $20. So I think Rhett is actually glad.
Listen, it's the happiest bet I will ever pay in my life. As soon as we finish wrapping up this podcast, I'm gonna jump in my truck, go hit the ATM, and get out $20 cash, a 10 from my boss, and a 10 from my buddy Warren. Listen, I'm going to be happy to see those guys on Tuesday, because if $20 is the price that I have to pay to not only see the Buccaneers beat the Saints in the regular season, but to see Jameis Winston live up to his namesake. I mean, wasn't able to hit his guys on the deep ball. Once he finally does, Chris Olave at the end of the game kind of lets him down. He catches it. It's a fumble. Bucks come up with it. It was garbage time attempts anyways, but for a lot of Saints fans watching, welcome to the Jameis Winston experience.
And for a lot of Mr. Bucks Nation fans watching, we thank you for tuning in. 217 people in the chat right now, I believe. A lot of them are coming from Mr. Bucks Nation's channel. We appreciate it. All of our guys that are normally here, we appreciate you as well. Yeah, and, you know, it was, to me, obviously, credit to Jameis for one. 4 fractures in your back sounds incredibly painful. I would certainly not be able to move like that. So the New Orleans Saints offensive line didn't do them any favors. This was a game that was uncharacteristic by New Orleans, especially against Tampa, to where they weren't able to protect the quarterback as well, and they weren't really able to pressure Tom Brady all that well. The Bucs offensive line held up. It really did.
And coming into this game, we knew that Donovan Smith was going to be more of a game-time decision. A couple hours before kickoff, Todd Bowles confirms that he's out. So you roll into this with Josh Wells at left tackle, which a lot of people are already uneasy with. Well, he suffered an ankle injury, missed the rest of the game, and here comes Brandon Walton, a third-string left tackle.
Here comes Mr. Bucks Nation with a 2-hour super chat. Me and my crew are here, boys. Let's go.
Shout out to our buddy James, but Brandon Walton, you got to give the guy his flowers here. I mean, he really next man up mentality. And to be honest, you didn't hear anything about that side of the offensive line after he came into the game. Yeah, maybe they helped him out with some chips every now and again, but he held his own. And even though the Bucs offense wasn't as productive as we would have liked them to be, they still got the job done and didn't turn the ball over aside from the fumble early on in the game.
Yeah, and the fumble was unfortunate. Is that cost you points? You still need to be better in the red zone. That's, you know, you had 2 trips and you couldn't convert one fumble, and then the 4th down call, which was the right call to go for it, I think. But I think that it just needs to be executed better, and that's the product of a inexperienced offensive line still trying to find their way. So, yeah, but overall, they played the offense. They didn't have the crippling mistakes, and that's what I was hoping they would avoid. They started to get those turnovers, and I was like, the one thing this offense can't do though is turn the ball over themselves. I said, if they take care of the football, they're going to be okay. The biggest thing we talked about on the game preview show is winning the turnover battle. The Bucs won at 4-1. So if you win the turnover battle, a lot of times you're going to win the game. And the Bucs haven't been able to do that against New Orleans in the past, and today they did. So I think that's a big reason why, and that might be the only reason why they won this game. I mean, 4 turnovers, including a pick 6, that to take it and turn it into 7, that's massive. That is absolutely massive. So that's a big deal. And yeah, let's get into the defense though. And yeah, I thought, like I said, the pass rush was there. I'm still kind of a little concerned about the run defense, a little bit.
Felt like Mark Ingram made a few more plays than I was comfortable with, especially before the turnover they got deep in Saints territory. I mean, it looked like they were
game too.
It looked like they were going to score right there.
That changed the game. Yeah, that might be a really one of them unsung plays that's not talked about a lot, but Logan Ryan popping that ball loose and getting that fumble, because the New Orleans was on the 10. That happened on the 10-yard line. So that completely changed the game there. New Orleans scores a touchdown there. They take the lead. I don't know if the Bucs are coming back from that. That crowd would have been amped. It would have been loud, but Logan Ryan changed the game there. So I think that's a play that you won't really talk about as much, but it was definitely a big momentum shift there. But Mark Ingram, yeah, he ran a little bit. It seems like I said, I think they're missing Jordan Whitehead. I do. And I think there's a little bit of an adjustment period with those new defensive backs, with a guy like Akeem Hicks, who also left the field with an injury. We don't have any update on him. Don't have any update on Wells either yet. So, I mean, with those guys, with Hicks being out, with like I said, with the loss of Jordan Whitehead, Mark Ingram ran the ball 10 times for 60 yards. That's 6 yards average. That's horrible. You're averaging 6 yards a carry. I'm not sure why the Saints didn't run the ball more, but I mean, one of these teams are going to. One of these teams are going to say, hey, let's just try and run the ball, and it could burn the Bucs. And on that one drive before that fumble happened, it did. I mean, it looked like they were exhausted. They were getting gashed.
Well, we talked about the turning point of this game being the fight, but my personal opinion when I was watching it, I was so happy with the way the defense was able to stay consistent and continue just the neutralization of a lot of these offenses so far. I mean, through the first 8 quarters of football, they only allowed 1 touchdown and a field goal.
And the touchdown was right at the end.
Right. A garbage time touchdown to Mike Thomas and 2 field goals. So 13 points.
Love Mike Thomas flexing down 11. Yeah, go off, King. Just go off.
He's always been one of those me first kind of players. I think he just wanted to get one up on Carlton Davis. Those guys were going back and forth all day as well, as we had talked about. But let's talk about some of the other playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. Now, 6 sacks on the day for this Bucs defense. I know we talked a lot about the pass rush wanting to get there, and while the run defense left a little bit to be desired, they were able to dial up the pressure and get after the quarterback when they needed to. We also saw Jameis Winston make a mistake. He's rolling out left, kind of went past the line of scrimmage. Shaq Barrett able to force the fumble. They don't come away with it, but just another example of how they were kind of able to hound the quarterback here. Devin White, 7 tackles on the day. He gets a sack as well, so he continues his streak of getting after the quarterback. He's already in 2 weeks, almost halfway to the milestone that I had set for him. I said 8 sacks on the season. You've got him hitting double digits, but another strong week for Big D White.
Yeah, and one of my predictions for my BugsNation.com was that Devin White would get 2 sacks. I was just one off. But yeah, Devin White, he really continues his awesome play. There was a few times in the run defense that he got pushed back a little bit, but overall as a blitzer and his pass coverage has been really good. He had a sack. Antoine Winfield had a sack. Levante David had a sack. Shaq Barrett ended up with 2 sacks, a quiet 2 sacks, I think. One of them was sort of towards the end there. I think that's partially why. And then Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and Vita Vea combined for a half sack. So that makes a full one. But yeah, the pass rush was consistent. It wasn't hounding Winston early on. No. Because I think sometimes with a pass rush, it takes a little bit. It takes some time to get your feet wet, get going, try to figure out what the offensive line's throwing at you. Are they going to be run heavy? Are they going to be pass heavy? If they're pass heavy, are they doing these quick hitters where, it's going to be tough to get sacks? Are they holding the ball on long? We talk about how the Saints kind of coddle Jameis. I don't think they did in this game. They didn't let him go, full scorched earth. But they let him throw the ball down the field and try and stretch the field.
When it was time to play catch up, they let him do what he needed to do, which led, to the multiple interceptions to close out the game. Let's talk about some of those as well. Jamel Dean, 2 picks on the day. I believe he was one of your players to watch at the beginning of the year, having one hell of a season.
He was my breakout player.
Yeah.
He was the guy I took to break out. I mean, that's, the first play I won't even necessarily put on Jameis just because I think it's such a good play by Jamel Dean. It was just a fantastic catch. As we have a $2 super chat from The Crazy Shank. Appreciate it. That's an awesome name. But I just think that was such a spectacular play. He said super chat for the Wendy's fund. So that tells us that you're an OG. So we appreciate you, Crazy.
Thank you, pal.
Yeah, I think it was just an awesome play by Jamel Dean. A great play, and that really changed things as well. But then the other one, this is a bad ball, but by Jameis. But nice to see finally get hands on those. And Winston, it seemed like once he threw one, it sort of started to all unravel. And that's the worry I have with him in New Orleans is when things are going fine, okay, like I don't think Winston's going to make the backbreaking mistake if everything's going fine. But if one thing goes wrong, how does he react to that one thing going wrong? And to me, he didn't react very well. A lot of that was the Bucs defense forcing things. I thought Winston could have thrown two, maybe three more picks in this game. There were some close ones.
Yeah, Devin White had a close call towards the end of the game.
Yeah, he had a close one. Logan Ryan came zooming across the middle of the field on a caught ball by Michael Thomas. There were some close ones. He was trying to thread the needle, and obviously the Mike Edwards pick six was just a bad read, bad throw.
That was the nail in the coffin. I mean, you get a house call right when you need it from a guy who is no stranger of pick sixes, scoring himself 2 in a row last year against Atlanta in that game in Tampa.
3 already. That's crazy. He has 3 pick sixes.
Yeah,
he might have like 5 career interceptions, and 3 of them are pick sixes.
Now I got to tell you, we'll talk about the offense here in a little bit, but this new, and I say new, defensive identity for Tampa Bay, it feels fresh. Like I know it's a lot of the same staff. A lot of your core is the same. But their effectiveness early on in the season, that's going to pay off later on. And I think we got to start to credit guys like Larry Foote, Todd Bowles for drawing things up the way that they have on the defensive side of the ball. The offense, they got bailed out today. Let's face it. They were not going to outscore New Orleans if the defense was not holding it down the way that they did.
Our buddy Gene from Book What You Heard with a $2 super chat, and I'm happy to see a defense stepping up. Absolutely. If the defense didn't step up, this game might have been a blowout because the Bucs offense didn't really wake up till it would have been too late probably if the defense didn't play well. So the defense really kept them in this game, put them in some nice field positions as well. The Bucs won the field position game for the most part in this game. So I think that's a credit to some of the pressure that they got on Winston, forced them into some second and longs, some third and longs. It's weird, they gave up 3 points and it was on the opening drive again. So it seems like if you're going to really move the ball in this defense a lot, it's going to be early. So hopefully you can get that corrected because you don't want, you don't want every single opening drive to end in points. But the defense right now is certainly on a hot streak, and it's still early in the season. I don't know if you can call them, the best defense in the NFL, but right now they're looking like it, and that's all that matters right now.
I'd say this is the hottest start they have had during the Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, Todd Bowles era, whatever you want to call
it. Yeah, definitely start. There's been times when they've been better, like during the season, but start wise, like this is the best that they've started. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've actually during the Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians era on defense, they've started relatively slow. And I think you're starting to see the reason why they're starting fast. This is Devin White's 4th year. This is Carlton Davis's 5th year. This is Jamel Dean's 4th year. All these guys are in the same system now. This is Vita Vea's 5th year, I think. All these guys are in the same system, and they're starting to buy into that system. They're starting to feel more comfortable, and the new pieces are stepping up. Logan Ryan, he had that forced fumble, had a pass breakup as well. Like I said, Akeem Hicks left with an injury. Anybody join us right now? We don't have any update on Akeem Hicks, so we'll see how that transpires. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully it's more of a precaution that they held him out, not like he's like a serious injury. We'll see. But then and Keanu O'Neal, they all play roles, and I think the new additions on this team have paid dividends, but it's those core guys. It is those guys with the core, the Antoine Winfield, the Devin Whites. This is Antoine Winfield's 3rd year. People forget that,
Dude's playing like he's been in the league for 7 and 8 at this point. It's like he's in his prime.
And it's hard to believe that's only his 3rd year because at the same time, it feels like he was just drafted yesterday, but also it feels like he's been on the team for a while. It's kind of like Brady too with me. I'm like, oh, this is only Brady's 3rd year with the Bucs. So it feels like he's been there for much longer. But like I said, the Devin White, Anton Winfield, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Vita Vea, these guys are in the same system. Even Shaq Barrett, who was a free agent, but this is his 4th year in the same system. They're finally comfortable in that system, and they're finally comfortable in themselves. That's why I said I thought the defense was going to start off better than the offense. The offense is still trying to work in a lot of new pieces. You're seeing that, obviously. But the defense right now is carrying the load. Can they do this forever? No, the offense is going to have to be better. The offense is going to have to become productive. But for now, this is defense getting the job done.
And I think the offense will get better. Obviously, they have time. It's early in the season. They have a rough stretch of games. But the fact that they're already 2-0 means that if worst possible case scenario, you drop these next two, we talked about how important it is to come out of this 4-game stretch with at least 2 wins, right? It sets you up for success down the road. You've already played some of the tougher teams on your schedule, and you still have a lot of time to get prepared. When you can face your toughest oppositions first, I think it's going to set you up with more offensive success in the long run. But let's give out some more roses here on defense before we talk about the other side of the ball. I just want to take a minute and appreciate number 24, Carlton Davis. I think, honestly, that may have been one of the most underappreciated, underrated, not talked about enough signings, because if this team didn't have a number 1 corner playing the way that he is right now, especially with Sean Murphy-Bunting not getting a whole lot of action these first 2 weeks of the season, who knows what the secondary looks like right now? And they have really been playing their part here.
Yeah, and I thought the secondary was pretty good today. They forced Winston to hold the ball. There was a few times where I think Winston wanted to go deep and had to take the flat because the secondary was covering the guys. So, and this is against an offense, like I said, Michael Thomas was back last week, man. And I mean, he was effective today. He caught a few balls, but like he didn't have the impact on today's game that he did last week. Jarvis Landry was almost a non-factor today. Like Jarvis Landry, I think caught 2 balls. I don't like, he barely did anything. And then Chris Olave, the biggest play that he'll be remembered for is the fumble, which Carlton Davis getting beat in that situation can't happen because you're trying to protect a lead. You can't let that deep ball happen. But that's really the only complaint I have about Carlton Davis's game today is that play. And that may even be some of like the play calling. If you're going man to man there, I don't know why you wouldn't just go zone, play some prevent and stuff. But overall, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean was very good.
I don't want to think about it because it is early in the season. But what is going on with Sean Murphy-Bunting? I mean, the way that this defense has seemed to find a little bit more productivity in his absence, it cannot be a coincidence. I know the coaching staff sees it. What's going on with SMB? Because, I mean, if you are a fan of number 23, it doesn't look great in your camp all right now.
No, it doesn't. And as long as the defense is playing this way, it's hard to say you can put him back in the lineup. Honestly, it's hard to see a way for him to get back in this lineup because Anton Winfield's playing that nickel and he's playing that very well. The basically the 3 safety look that the Bucs have on defense right now is playing very well, and you don't want to mess up a good thing. So the Bucs coaching staff may want to get a look at SMB at some point on the defense. I don't know if he played any defensive snaps tonight. The snap counts obviously haven't come out, but I don't know, but it's hard to say, you know what? Yeah, this is working, but we're going to insert a different guy and see if that works. You don't want to mess that up. If the defense starts to struggle, maybe you put him in as a, as a spark plug, maybe, but you don't want to mess up a good thing. So Sean Murphy-Bunting, it sucks for him, but as long as his defense is playing the way it is, I don't see a way he's going to get on the field, especially with this team looking for gunners, which the special teams, again, was very good today.
By the time we record with Sean King later in the week, we're probably going to have a better idea of what's going on with Akeem Hicks. But let me ask you this before we transition as well. Depending on what that injury looks like, Akeem Hicks is no stranger to dealing with injuries. He missed the rest of the game after going down. Do you think the Bucs could see some motive to pick up the phone and maybe call a free agent D-tackle that may or may not still be available? Seeing a couple people in chat bringing it up, so I wanted to get your 2 cents.
Yeah, maybe if the Hicks injury is like a long-term thing, but like I don't think there's a reason Sue's still out there. Like, yeah, there's a reason he's still on sign. There's teams that have showed interest in him, but they didn't really obviously sign him. I think the Raiders and the Browns were 2 teams that sort of had interest, but yeah, I don't think so. But if the Hicks injury is a long-term thing, maybe it's something you consider because this is a win now, season. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect it, but we'll see.
Maybe an alternative here, and probably the more realistic option if Hicks is expected to miss some time. You see a little bit more of the rookie Logan Hall, who I would say has held his own over these first 2 weeks. He hasn't blown the roof off of the place.
Ton of him today.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot, but he did have the tackle in the backfield against Dallas week 1. More reps for him, I mean, could only be better at this point. What have you got to lose? You know what I mean? Throw the rookie out there, let him get his feet wet and see if he can make some difference. But let's talk about the offensive side of the ball here for Tampa Bay. And I don't want to say this is where the show gets a hell of a lot less fun, but it certainly isn't as excitable when we talk about the turnover explosion from Tampa Bay on the defensive side of the ball. Tom Brady, let's talk about his day first. 18 for 34, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, but he did have the fumble on the botched snap with Robert Hainsey. I mean, Brady was very clearly frustrated in that first half. Another Microsoft Surface tablet is a victim against New Orleans. They'll probably fine him for that. But, I mean, aside from that, I thought he was doing his best with what he had in that first half. Did he get frustrated? Yeah, he very clearly got frustrated.
Did you see the one time they were in the huddle and he's just looking at every single person?
Yeah.
He's just screaming at them.
I mean, there were no shortage of obscenities down there on the field by TB12, but overall, he made the throws that he needed to.
Including a touchdown pass.
Yeah, there was a huge clutch touchdown pass to Brashad Perryman, which really catapulted the Bucs forward.
And he's lucky it was a touchdown pass because Russell Gage was wide open. There was nobody within 10 yards of Russell Gage, but Brady opted to throw the deep ball to Perryman. So he's lucky that it was a touchdown pass because Russell Gage, it would have been probably close to a 20-yard gain if you throw it at the Gage. So thank God that Perryman caught it and everything, because that would have been disastrous.
As far as I can remember, I think Brady only got sacked once today, and he kind of fell down.
It was he tried to step up in the pocket. He tried to like almost run, and then he just went down. Yeah, the Bucs offensive line protected him very well. I would say that's another reason why they won this game. Not necessarily in the run game. The run game, they got beat up a good bit, but which, I mean, they want to be a running football team, so that's not. I'm sure Todd Bowles won't be too happy about that, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, as far as pass protection goes, yeah, this was way better than last week in Dallas, and they held their own against players who have given them fits over the years, so it was good to see.
You talked about it on the pregame show, and I saw exactly what you meant today. I think, off the top of my head, there were only 1 or 2 snaps where number 41 was on the field for a passing.
Oh, no, two. There's two.
One of them was play action.
Yeah, and the other one was to him.
Yes. So
he dropped
he dropped it. Yeah. So with that being said, let's transition over to the offensive play calling before we talk about some other guys who were effective out there today. Definitely not the best showing for Byron Leftwich. It felt like a frustrating game for pretty much everybody on the sideline, Tom Brady included.
Yeah. So I had a tweet during the game. I said Bowles ball because that's what they always say. Like I know Pewter Report said, like, yeah, this is like Bowles ball or whatever. I said, like, in quotes, like Bowles ball, and then I said it is coward ball. And I said that after they let the clock run before the first half ended. They let the clock run all the way down while having 3 timeouts. They let the clock run all the way down, and then they let the Saints punt, and then they took a knee.
I didn't like that either.
Yeah, like, I don't like. This is a division opponent. Like, you step on them. Like, you know, in the first half, I think you had 11 first downs, and all 11 were runs. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you have Tom Brady on your team. Like, I understand you don't have to throw the ball 50 times, but give me a break. Like, enough is enough. And they made adjustments in the second half. They did. They threw the ball a lot more. And look, it worked. Like it worked. You're not a running football team. Like, don't try to be. And yes, I do know that there's going to be games where Brady's going to have to throw 300, 400 yards, 3-4 touchdowns. Like, I know. But, like, come on, man. The running game wasn't working at all. Like, you wonder why you didn't score any points in the first half. You were running it. You were in 2nd and 9 every single drive.
65 yards on 24 carries, average of 2.7 yards per carry for Leonard Fournette. That's a Peyton Barber stat line.
Absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Wasn't a great day running the football. 1 carry for Scotty Miller on the end around. He got 8 yards and a first down, I believe. 2 carries and 1 yard for Rachaad White. So safe to say the running game was not a factor today. Obviously, the defense stepping up and forcing turnovers is what helped propel the Bucs forward. A big touchdown to Brashad Perryman in the air. But you really didn't see the Buccaneers offense consistently move the ball until they started to trust Tom Brady throwing the football a little bit more. And I know that they were completely diminished of pass catchers. Scotty Miller had a couple of really bad drops to start this one out. He made up for it later on in the game, had a couple of snags, but like realistically, man, it was not a great day on offense for Tampa Bay. And I'll tell you that my opinion on them running the clock down at the end of the first half, they had 3 timeouts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They didn't use a single timeout.
You burn a timeout there with over a minute left on the clock, and you're telling me you do not trust Tom Brady to get you into at least field goal range with over a minute and 2 timeouts. I didn't like that at all, and that had told me that they had checked out on the offense scoring a touchdown, at least for the first half. I didn't like that.
That told me they checked out on the offense doing anything. Like, they're playing scared. Like, that was playing scared. Like, that was playing like you thought a turnover or something was going to happen, and the Saints were going to get the ball back. Because the alternative for the Saints was either punt the ball or take the 56-yard field goal. 56-yard field goal, Will Lutz is really good, but a 56-yard field goal is a 56-yard field goal. That's difficult. So, like, if you take the timeout with like a minute left, let's say they decide to kick the field goal. If they miss the field goal, you're almost at midfield with 2 timeouts. Like, why are we letting the clock run all the way down and not even calling a timeout? To me, that, like you said, it felt like they were scared. They just wanted to get the halftime and get it over with. And then something clicked in the second half, and it was because they threw the ball more. It's not rocket science. And yeah, it sucks that, they were really depleted at the wide receiver position, but shout out to Brashad Perryman, shout out to Scotty Miller for making the plays that they needed to make. I thought Russell Gage was okay. Like I said, he was wide open on that one. Brady just, decided not to hit him. He was okay. He was a little quiet in the second half. In the first half, he was like their only option, really. But this whole trying to play defense and complementary football, it can work, but it's not going to work every week. You think this is going to work against Patrick Mahomes? Like, that Chiefs offense looks almost unstoppable right now. No, you're going to have to step on their throats. One of the reasons the Chargers didn't win that game is because they didn't step on their throats. So you can't play scared. And obviously a win is a win, and you're happy they're 2-0, but there's some things on this offense that are not right now. And yeah, not having Julio hurt, not having Godwin hurt, Donovan Smith, it hurts. And then, later on, not having Mike Evans, but it's just not the game plan that you want. If the running game, if you come out of the gate and the running game is working, whatever, stick to it. If it's not, though, you got to have the awareness to get away from it. You got to try something different. And they didn't in the first half. And that's why they didn't have any points in the first half.
I wasn't a big fan of some of the offensive play calling in 3rd and long situations. It would be 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. And it'd be a screen pass to a wide receiver. Yeah. And I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a give up.
Yeah, it really felt like a cop out there, just trying to get off of the field and set up some better field position for the punt. But I mean, it is what it is. They got the job done. Another thing that I think we're going to gripe about here for a minute, and then we'll talk about some real spicy stuff. I know we want to talk about the officiating. I know Sean Hockley and his team is hot garbage. If you guys remember this officiating crew, they were the same one there for the Buccaneers' final game of the 2021 season. That divisional round loss to LA. Even Hockley and Brady were getting lippy with each other. You cannot convince me any way possible that Sean Hockley does not have money riding against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers every time they play. But it's hard for me to be mad about how terrible the officiating was when the Bucs were as undisciplined as they were in that first half, and even a little bit of the third quarter. I thought some of that stuff was absolutely unacceptable, and it looked like week 1 football out there for a little while.
Yeah, it was a little sloppy, I think, on both sides. The Saints having 12 men in the huddle on the punt. That can't ever happen. If you're gonna have a penalty on the punt, it better be, you better jump, you better hold, you better do something. But yeah, they have 12 men in the huddle. And then obviously some questionable calls, some non-calls. The entire fight started with a non-call, which we'll get into, obviously. But the entire fight, the entire reason, the refs are the reason for that fight. The refs are the reason for that fight.
That's the whole reason Tom Brady threw it over there. I am 100% convinced, because Tom has done that before. We've talked about him doing that before. There were a couple of times today where I felt like he was just throwing the football to get the referees to look over there at the manhandling that was happening from the defensive opposition. There was a lot of uncalled pass interference on
literally.
both sides of the ball. Listen, there's probably going to be some Saints fans in our live chat because
there were some calls that I was like,
yeah, there was some tic-tac calls, but for the most part, I mean, this was some of the worst officiating I have seen, and I've watched a lot of games this season. Like this,
you watched a lot of games in 2 weeks of football.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
All right, NFL Red Zone is a beautiful thing, but yeah, it was god awful out there today.
The Keanu Neal thing, I don't know, what is that referee seeing? Like, what is he seeing? Like, I don't understand. How is Keanu Neal supposed to stop? Like, how is he supposed to stop? And then later on, the Chris Olave thing, same thing against Levante David. Like, how are you supposed to prevent that? Like, it's garbage. Like, that is complete garbage. I don't know how you're supposed to prevent that. It's football. Like, that's gonna happen. Why are you penalizing? And luckily for the Bucs, I don't think the Saints scored any points on either of those drives. But like the Keanu Neal one, that was on third down. That was a sack that allowed a third down to become a first down. And luckily the Bucs defense held strong there, but that could have changed the game too. You know, you're talking about that could have turned into points for New Orleans instead of them punting. You know, that changed the field goal. But you know, and like I said, is there bad calls on both sides? Yeah, the Cameron Brate one on Bradley Roby was a little, you know, I don't know if you needed to call that one. And there was a few pass interferences here and there, but that's all at the discretion. But yeah, that non-pass interference call was the reason for the fight. It's very funny. It's very funny. If they would have called that, there's no reason for Brady to complain. And then there's no reason for Marshawn Lattimore to taunt Brady. And then there's no reason for Mike Evans to go over there and hit Marshawn Lattimore. So the entire fight started because you didn't call pass interference where it was obvious.
I will say, Mike Evans is a real one, dude. I laughed out loud when I saw him run on the field and just flatten Marshawn Lattimore. Yeah. It gave you shades of what he did in 2019. Now, I know Lattimore.
It was 2017. And it was,
it was that long ago.
This hit was harder.
This is the beef between Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. This is personal. Like, those guys were probably waiting for each other out in the parking lot after the game.
I personally loved it. I texted you that. Don't let them.
I will say, listen, like I had said at the start of the podcast, when that fight had happened, I wanted to assume the worst, like you always do when these two teams play, because whenever things erupt like that, the Bucs never come out on the top side of it, ever. They never come out mentally stronger than the Saints do. It's always the Saints who end up just picking things up exactly when they need to. Like after the Bucs scored the touchdown, you and I both had the same exact thought. We're like, watch New Orleans just go ahead and, march 80 yards and score.
I was like, yeah, it's going to be 10-10.
Yeah. No, I thought this Bucs defense stepped up. I thought the fight was a nice, light a fire under everybody's ass. Brady was right there in the middle of it. So luckily Mike ran in when he did. And I mean, Mike Evans is a real one. He's always going to stick up for his quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, that was good to see. Yeah. Don't let them push you around.
It really sucks because no, they didn't need it. Like they couldn't really afford to lose their number one wide receiver.
You don't want to see that again this season.
Right.
you don't, because I think Mike Evans is not going to be available versus Green Bay next week. He's probably going to get suspended. In which case, I think Marshawn Lattimore better get suspended because if Mike Evans is, Marshawn Lattimore should be. And the reason I give that example, and some people were like, no, like why would he get suspended? He didn't throw a punch. In 2017, when he laid that hit on Marshawn Lattimore, the next week he was suspended. Mike Evans got suspended. So he's been suspended for that before. You don't have to throw a punch. So I think Mike Evans is going to be suspended a game. I think if Mike Evans is suspended, so should Marshawn Lattimore. They were both ejected from the game. And I just don't see if you're going to suspend one guy that we don't have that confirmed or anything, but if you're going to suspend one guy, I don't see how you can't suspend the other.
When they have that rematch in Tampa later this year, they might need some extra security on hand because those refs were struggling to really break those guys up, especially once the bench is cleared. There were a lot of guys out there getting physical.
Yeah. there was a lot, and I actually thought, I thought it was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the rest of the game. I was like, after every whistle, if there were two other guys that I would say I was like, ooh, like watch it. It was Marcus May and Leonard Fournette. Those were the two others that were really involved in that scrum. But I mean, it hurt the Saints because while the Bucs, I mean, it hurt the Bucs worse because the Bucs were already without Godwin and Jones, but it hurt the Saints because there goes their number one corner. There goes their number one corner. They were already down Paulson and Debo. That's their number two corner. So I think that hurt, and it worked in the Bucs' favor. Me and my dad were talking, and we talk a lot about hockey and everything. And when you fight in hockey, the fight's going to go one or two ways. It's either going to energize that team's bench, or it's going to energize your bench. It's going to energize somebody. You just hope that it's on your side. And in this case, it energized the Bucs. The Saints seemed like they were defeated after that. Like I don't know the exact timestamp of the fight, like during the game, like when it was, but after that, the Bucs dominated.
Hey. Sometimes you just gotta punch a motherfucker in the mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes you just gotta tussle, man.
Sometimes you just gotta bring it to them. I mean, I know that hindsight's always 20/20, and if the Bucs had lost this game, we'd be sitting here talking about how Mike Evans may have hurt his team. But in the long run, I think everybody needed that. I think it was everything that had boiled over from the first half of that football game. Everybody got some aggression out. It always happens when these two teams play. There's a lot of history of these two teams getting chippy is what I'm trying to say. So with that being said, the Buccaneers win the mental battle and they take this one to advance to 2-0. Hey, shout out our guy Ryan Suckup, who leads the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in scoring.
Yeah, Suckup doesn't suck.
Ice cold. He's the goddamn man.
Yeah, he's the MVP. They would be 0-2 without this guy.
He made 2 kicks today, was 2 for 2 on field goals, both of them over 45 yards. So longer as far as his range goes.
Well,
but
they were
at
the end. They were. I know they were doing a delay game, but I was like, can you not try a 55-yard field goal here?
As soon as I saw 55 yards, they took the delay game, take him back 5 yards, let him pin him deep on the punt. But
I was like, oh no, let's not do this.
No, I didn't have a great feeling about that either. I thought they got iced at first, but hey, it is what it is, man. Suck up in there. He won that kicking job from Jose Borregales, and over these first 2 weeks of the season, he has showed why he won that kicking job. Missed the one against Dallas, but you can't really be mad at him for it.
You can't. Michael Jordan didn't make every shot.
He's been playing in Tampa long enough where you have a good idea of his range. Right around 50 yards is when things get
50,
shaky.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, we can certainly count on number 3, and he came up big time today.
Anything inside of 50, you're pretty confident.
Our buddy G Vegas, the moderator, holding it down in chat, says, speaking of special teams, I think the rookie Jake Camarda is punting well this season, and it seems to get off. He seems to get it off quicker than he did last week.
He did. Got hit a few times. He's gonna be sore by the end of the season because and that's a knock on him. He holds the ball longer.
He ended up on the ground 2 or 3 times today that I had noticed.
Yeah. And last week it was 3 or 4 times. Yeah, he's gonna be sore. So yeah, but he's been doing a good job of pinning them. And again, I think when you're looking at the preseason, we were all so worried about this team's special teams units, and they've just silenced us right now. Like they have just completely silenced us. Obviously, the punt return and kick return didn't really have many opportunities for a kick return because the Saints didn't score much. But
Jalen Darden had a shifty little return for I think 15 yards on a punt.
Yeah, whatever. That works. That works. Yeah, like he looks competent. Like and the special teams look competent. They look like a normal special teams unit. Even when I think his name's Justin Hardy. Even when Justin Hardy was receiving the kickoffs or punts, and he would get there, he'd only get 10 yards or so. It wouldn't turn into 20, 25 yards. That's a big difference, and it's a big difference in field position. So yeah, the special teams. I think that's one where we should look back at the preseason and be like, yeah, kind of overreact to that a bit because it's not as bad as we thought.
So, so is this Bradley Pinion's fault?
Now
that we are 2 games out of the People's Champ era, can we confirm that maybe some of the special team punting woes were on him, or are we overthinking it?
I cannot confirm nor deny that it was his fault.
He's a division rival now.
Yeah, but we also have a bias towards him. So
I don't know. He hasn't texted me back.
Listen. If you want to come on here and defend yourself, come on, you have an open invitation on here. You do. Falcons week is coming up in a few weeks. You can come on for that preview if you want. I could just trash your team, and just say how terrible they are. While you sit there and I'll be like, man, Bradley, yeah, your leg's gonna be used up a lot, but you're gonna be punting a lot, and we can talk about it if you want. The invitation is yours, my friend. The ball is in your court.
So looking ahead for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, I want to make a few more comments about the offense here before we start to wrap things up.
That's just the whole mood for the offense.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's so much. I feel like there's so much ground to cover because one is that I don't feel like this is going to be a constant thing. I don't think we're going to see any other teams outside of New Orleans that hold the Buccaneers to potentially 0 touchdowns on the day.
And frustrate Tom Brady the way they have.
Right. I mean, that's the formula that New Orleans has had for long enough. Coming into this game, the Buccaneers were 0-7 in their last 7 games. They've had the formula to beat the Bucs for a long time since before Brady got here.
Haven't beaten them in the regular season in 4 years.
I know. Literally 4 years this week. 4 years this week.
It was September 9th, 2018.
Week 1.
Like that is remarkable. That is seriously remarkable.
And the
losses haven't even been close. Like a lot of the losses, they're not even like normal losses. And it's every victory is good. These wins are, hard to come by, but it's better when it's a game like this, especially a division opponent on the road. That's a tough game to win. Missing the guys you did, that showed the resilience that this team has.
So on the offensive side of the ball, who do we point the finger at this week? Are we looking at the offensive play calling? Are we looking at the execution? I know we've praised certain parts of the game. Brady did what he could. The offensive line held up a lot better than most of us thought they would. So could we chum this up to, the same old shit when the Bucs play New Orleans, they usually get held on offense? Or do you think maybe there was one thing that outweighed everything else that attributed to lack of success moving the ball this week?
Well, the thing I would say, if they played better versus Dallas, I would say yes, it's just New Orleans, but they left some things to be desired versus Dallas as well. They scored 19 points and now 20 points. So you need to be better. And I think that is play calling and execution. I think that's always been play calling and execution, because you can have a good play. If the players don't execute, it don't matter. Or you could, just have dumb play calls that don't make any sense. And I think the Bucs had a little bit of both today. The 4th and 1, it's a okay play call again, and the decision to go for it on 4th and 1 was the right one to me. You be aggressive at certain points. We talked about Todd Bowles' team kind of being a little bit passive. There you were aggressive. The execution was just terrible. Luke Gedeke missed the block. He really didn't know what his assignment was. The execution overall was terrible. Scotty Miller, people wanted him cut throughout the game because he couldn't do anything right. It's one, he can't stay up on the ground. You need to stay up on your 2 feet, my man, because it seems like he's running so fast that he can't walk.
When he goes to slow down, he loses his balance.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. So that's execution. Brashad Perryman on that 3rd down play, when the Bucs just threw it, which I didn't love. That's execution. There's some things, the fumble, that's execution. To me, it boils down to executing more than play calling. You need to execute better, and I think they will. I don't have many. Let's just say this. I have more concerns about this offense long-term play calling wise and philosophy wise than I do execution wise. I think the execution will get better. I just hope that the play calling gets a little bit different.
I agree. And because we've seen them do it before. Statistically, they are usually a top 10 offense in the NFL as far as effectiveness goes. Tom Brady led the NFL in all the passing categories last year. He threw damn near 40 touchdowns his first year in Tampa Bay. He was very productive. He has been productive. And if you have to rely on Brady to throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game, you can certainly do it. It's just not their main goal this year. So how will that affect them in the long run? We have to wait and find out. But it'll certainly be interesting to see because these guys can do it. There are playmakers all over this offense, especially when everyone is healthy. One more thought about this game. I got to tell you, a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it. But I kind of like seeing Bruce Arians talking shit on the sidelines. They showed a clip of him over there, and they're like, "Oh, look at Bruce Arians out there still on the sidelines for Tampa Bay," and he is just still yelling at officials. And there's nothing else I'd want him to do down there if he's going to be down there on the sideline. But Jason Light, Bruce Arians, no strangers to the Bucs sidelines, especially this year.
It's like having two head coaches, basically.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles, he isn't the type to. No, I mean, he did, though, on the one. It was, I think, the Levante David, the penalty. When the refs were explaining it to him, Bowles got a little animated there. He got pretty angry. But yeah, it was fun to see. It was fun to see. You just hope that doesn't result in any penalties. Obviously, keep your cool. Don't go on the field, stuff like that. Like, there's limits to that. But yeah, it's fun to see him still kind of involved in that way. And he still misses coaching. If Brady didn't come back, he was going to be the coach. He said that. He said he just wanted Todd Bowles to have a shot with Brady. But yeah, there's still a coach in there, and yeah, you saw that with that. You definitely did.
Final thoughts on this week 2 matchup, Evan. What are some of the biggest takeaways you have from this one, and some of the things you're going to be looking a little bit closer at as they are back at home next week for the home opener against Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay?
Yeah, obviously you want the defense to continue its streak here. So you have the best quarterback so far on your schedule that has come up in Aaron Rodgers here. So you're going to need to play. You're going to need to play good. You're going to need to play disciplined. They've played pretty disciplined football so far. I know the fight obviously kind of takes that out, but they've played pretty disciplined as far as penalties during the games, the holdings, the pass interferences, the offsides. They've been pretty good with that. And you just hope that continues against the Packers team who, I think isn't as good as years past, but I still think it's one of the better teams in the NFC, and it's not going to be easy. I actually think, to me, this when you looked at the first 4 games, it went easiest to hardest. The Cowboys, Saints, Packers, probably, well, maybe you might have to switch to Packers and Saints just because of the mentality thing, but and that being in New Orleans. But I would say, Cowboys, Packers, Saints, Chiefs in terms of difficulty. So I think the Chiefs are the best team on that list. But as far as playing Green Bay, you've had Aaron Rodgers number the last 2 times you played him. Hope you can go for 3, but I think eventually, like, this offense is gonna need to start playing better. Brady, I think has been fine. There's been some stuff in the chat that he's not been good. That's just wrong. Just watch the game, I guess. But Brady's been fine. He's done his job. I think the offensive velocity does need to be tweaked. You don't have to change it completely. If you want to run the ball more. But all the first down runs, the lack of play action, like, the only reason you should be running that much on first down is to set up play action, and you don't even do that. So I think they need to be better that way, and that's really what I'm looking forward to. But it's 2-0. 2-0 is 2-0, and now you have a lead in the division. You finally got the monkey off your back in New Orleans. We'll see if you can, beat them in Tampa, which is another bugaboo you've had later on in the year, but we'll get to that when you get to it. And yeah, I thought that, like I said, this team has played complementary football, and my only concern is that against these really good quarterbacks and these really good offenses, you won't be able to always do that. So that's pretty much it. And the final thought is just eating, just eating.
We're gonna eat one, man. We're gonna eat a W on this beautiful week 2 Sunday. Looking ahead at the Buccaneers schedule, as you had alluded to, Aaron Rodgers coming to town next week, so obviously could mix some things up as far as hiring the pace on the offensive side of the ball, because I know it hasn't been an offensive explosion for Green Bay because he doesn't have a lot of great receivers, but he can still make you pay. He's a talented quarterback, and the Bucs defense has to be prepared. But I would say,
whether you want to disagree with it or not, he's a back-to-back MVP for a reason. Like, he's not bad.
It is fair. I mean, if we get Perk Rodgers coming in this week, it could be a long day. But I will say the same thing about Aaron Rodgers coming to Tampa Bay. He never plays well in Florida. He has not played well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the last 2 years, and that could very well be the case. I almost expect the defense to play well this week more than I do against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And obviously that'll come when we talk about it. But for right now, the Buccaneers defense is legit. Look to carry that momentum into next week at the home opener. And hopefully the offense can produce a little more fireworks next week as they face a potentially potent quarterback who can put points on the board. Bucs were down 10-0 before Jamel Dean came up clutch with his pick 6, and then another interception shortly thereafter, back in that regular season game, week 6, I believe, of 2020.
By the 2 guys who had picks today, Jamel Dean and Mike Everett.
Look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, with all that being said, that's just about going to do it for today's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Big shout out to our live audience. We truly appreciate everybody stopping by in the live chat. Bucks Time 12, Vincent Wright, JT, Sean Proctor, Mike S., Corey Fleming, Wishing B, Eddie Nash, G Vegas, the moderator, of course, holding it down. Harvinder Sania, I think I said that correctly. Dave Rubin, and anybody else that I may have missed. We truly appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Plenty of great Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. And we try to put out some stuff as much as we can. I mean, we're doing 3 full podcasts a week. We are officially back to our regular schedule. Most of our OGs know that by now, but you can expect a show later on this week with former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Sean King. We'll get his 2 cents on the game against New Orleans, and of course, we'll preview a little bit of the Green Bay game. Maybe we'll get you an injury update on guys like Josh Wells and Akeem Hicks, but stay tuned to find that out. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show and, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_Daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL and check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What you got cooking this week?
Yeah, so it should be out either tonight, since it's a 1 p.m. game, or tomorrow at the latest. But going to be looking at, like I said, the BucsNation.com staff makes their predictions for each week. So what I do is after the game, I'll go in and I'll see the predictions, and then I'll review the predictions. So see if they were way off or if they were around the money. So my prediction last week was Joe Tryon-Shoyinka 2 sacks. He didn't get any of that. So I was way off. This week, I was a little bit closer. Not quite there, but I said Devin White was going to have 2 sacks. He had 1. So I was close, but no cigar. So I go in and I review each of our staff's picks and see how they did. Just do like a little recap of how that player's day was or how that unit's day was. So be on the lookout for that soon.
Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the show. We'll talk to you later on this week for the Mailbag Show with Sean King. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucks.